our kids are positively engaged and also.
Okay, Boniface, I think we are losing you again. But
I think that's. Yeah, can you hear me now?
Okay, so I can hear you. And
thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think I need to give somebody else, but I'm around for questions and answers at the time. Yes, that's appropriate.
Sure.
Thanks for letting me share with you.
Thank you very much, Boniface, for those insights. And you've raised quite some very good points there. I like the idea of protective good environment, and there's no better place than within a properly organized community, that is the resident association. So we'll discuss more on that. So that I can catch up on time, I want to go straight to the next speaker. I don't know if Reverend Malaba is with us. He had a problem with these gadgets. So Reverend Malaba, I can't see him online. So we'll jump him, and then when he comes, we can go back to him. And I'll go straight to Dr. Charles Orek, who had mentioned earlier is the coordinator of Alcohol and Drug Abuse Prevention Unit at Southeastern Kenya University, who will share with us his insight. Just before he comes, in terms of Twitter engagement, the hashtag is Kara Drug Abuse Forum. That's the hashtag for Twitter engagement. And then we encourage you, if you have any question or comment, you can post that on the chat box. Some of them answer them,
but now
by click on the chat box.
Ninawasikia.
Is that Malaba?
Na siwaoni. Sasa niko. Hello, Henry.
Yes, Reverend Malaba, we were waiting for you. So I don't know if you can quickly just take a few minutes and talk to us about what you had prepared. Can you hear me, Malaba?
Well, yes, I can hear you.
Yes, please share with us what you are doing as Comarock Resident Association, and so that you can be able to engage further. So proceed.
Thank you very much, Henry. As Comarock Resident Association, we have a coalition of interested parties in the community who are sharing their visions, their successes and stories together with us. And our approach has been to kind of identify the high priority areas, that is especially the younger people who are very much on drugs. And we have also come up with programs in schools where we go and minister to the children, show them videos on consequences of using drugs, issues of mental health. I'm looking for my notes. Our approach, sorry, here I am. So evidence-based community coalitions, based prevention model. The community prevention program has been very effective in helping us to address major challenges raised by substance misuse and their consequences. Now, these programs are coordinated by a local community coalitions composed of representatives from community sectors and organizations, CBOs, churches, mosques, schools, school administration, security, health, community volunteers within the community, as well as citizens, private citizens. Now, these coalitions work to change community social problems from worsening to improved status, youth, adults, and children through short, interesting talk shows during community forums organized by different coalitions within the community. And the coalitions have selected an effective interventions and implementing them by holding the regular forums of the youth being together. They have a popular show called Vijana Tuonge. And then we also have billboards at the main gates declaring those areas as drug-free zones. And also we have come up with the walks, 25-kilometer walk, Mkokoteni race competitions, Sheng competitions, football matches as some of the activities through which we are able to get together the young people from schools and talk about drugs. This broad-based coalition is made up of representatives from Komoro Race Association, Nyumba Kumi leaders, opinion leaders from the community, CBO representatives, church leader representatives, mosques, community health workers, like I said earlier, school administration, health service providers, and other neighborhood associations like NASRA, who are very close to us. And of course, with the support of Nakada officers in Nairobi region and the Peace Committee. Now, our goals have been to promote positive development and healthy behaviors for all children and youth in our area. Number two, to prevent problem behaviors, including substance use, delinquency, teen pregnancies, school dropouts, and violence and crimes in the area. Now, the purpose that this evidence-based system provides the community with strategic consultations, training for prevention planning. The system engages the community, youth, parents, elected leaders, law enforcement agents, schools, and businesses. Our own surveys indicate that the children going to school from the ages of 9 to probably 16, so many of them are engaged in drug use. And the best person that we are using is the teachers in the schools, because they are the first people to detect a child who is on drugs because of the dropping or an improved quality low performance score and the dosing in classroom, and also absenteeism. So those are our major identifying. We use them as key pillars to identify, to give us results of how many children are likely to be involved in drug use. And also the likelihood of children smoking at home. We are using parents to also try to see whether they are using their parenting skills to identify some of their children at home who are using alcohol, or those who are using smokeless tobacco, and also adults and elderly drunken behavior observations that help us now to be able to know whether we are really whether we are scoring or not. So fortunately, last year, because of COVID, the COVID-19 pandemic containment measures locked many people from moving up and down, the curfew, the lockdown, and that has since reduced, may I say, has reduced the number of those who are addicted being so much, roaming around. So that is the far we have gone. Our challenges are we need a rehabilitation center, because we have so many numbers. We require a place where we can do counseling and perhaps offer them treatment. Of course, the prevention specialists who are available, the community health volunteers here are willing to help. So I don't know what Nakada would say in view of that challenge that we are facing as a coalition of partners in this area. So I'll stop there and wait for more questions, Henry.
Thank you very much, Reverend Malaba, for sharing with us what you are doing as Komarok resident associations. And that is just an example of how pivotal communities can be able to play a role on issues on the fight against alcohol and drug abuse. I know the number of associations doing similar or even more in terms of supporting the fight against alcohol and drug abuse. And you can see the approach of putting together coalition of partners and stakeholders is very key. Like I said earlier when we started, that everybody has a role to play, because it is our children, it is our brothers, it is our sisters who are affected in one way or the other when they're exposed to issues of alcohol and drug abuse. So you must be able to pull together. So Reverend Malaba was just giving us just an example of how a resident association can actually play a central role and complement what the government is doing in the fight against alcohol and drug abuse. So we should be able to engage further, Reverend, after this, and maybe if there are questions, you'll be able to respond to them. Our next speaker is Dr. Charles Orek, Coordinator of Alcohol and Drug Abuse Prevention Unit in Southeastern Kenya University. So Dr. Orek, if you can hear me, please proceed with the presentation, and you have 15 minutes.
Thank you, Henry. And thank you everyone for tuning in. As Henry has introduced me, I'm Dr. Charles
And
Orek.
if your bandwidth allows, you can maybe switch on your camera even briefly so that people can see the people you're talking to. And that's the same for the rest of the speakers.
Unfortunately, my laptop does not, my laptop is an old-fashioned one, so I'm not able to activate the video.
Okay, then you can proceed.
Yeah, additionally, the host has not allowed the videos to be shared. So maybe you can look into that. Having said that, I work at Southeastern Kenya University, where I'm a lecturer. I'm honored to be here to share a bit of my perspectives with regard to the topic of today. One advantage or rather disadvantage of speaking towards the end is that you try very hard not to avoid what your colleagues have already said, but you can also pick a few things here and there to maybe to expound more on. So my work at the university is basically to try to suppress drug abuse and alcoholism for staff members as well as students. We have a population of around 10,000 students and about 600 staff members. So you can imagine that kind of a community, what can go on there. So we have worked in this for the last 4 years since I was appointed to do this role, and I had prepared a PowerPoint presentation on some of the risk factors that exposes the community to drug addiction and alcoholism issues. And maybe then I can perhaps share a bit of what I had in mind. I think this one allows me to share. Yes, I think if everyone can see that. Can you be able to see? Henry, can you see anything?
Yes, something is loading.
Okay. So as the slides are being loaded, I use, I'll be quick as fast as possible because mostly what I'm going to say about is more just things that have been repeated. We all know the issues about drugs. We all know the issues of the effect of drugs. We all know how the drugs get into our families, how drugs get into our society, and the consequences which runs through the community. It is really a pitiful situation. It is really a very difficult situation which has to be managed somehow. And that's why organizations such as Nakada, I was not aware about you, but since Henry got in touch, I became aware of you. And you are doing really marvelously by organizing these kind of forums. Number one, which I've seen, number one area which really need a bit of intervention, not even a bit, a lot, is parent, and I've seen the first speaker, Boniface, and also Reverend Malaba, I think that's the right name, Reverend Malaba has mentioned about parents. Parents play a very significant role in ensuring that there is no addiction or drug abuse among our young people, because we are talking about humans, we are talking about children, we are talking about young adults, and we come from families, and families are guided by parents. So for me, my perception is that because families form communities, a family forms a society. A family is the basic unit of a society. Therefore, if there is any particular intervention that can effectively work very well, we should be able to target the family. And the beauty of having organized communities such as Kara is that Kara, a combination of families makes up Kara. A combination of families like make the one that Dr. Reverend Malaba has mentioned about Komarok. I live in Nyayo Estate in Bakasi. It's another big community here. And we often engage in activities that try to keep our young people from drug addiction and also alcoholism. And for me, intervention that targets family can be very good. And then, of course, when we expand beyond family and now we go to the community level, let's look at alternative recreation, because one of the biggest causal of all these addiction problem is that our young people are bored. They are bored, and there's a bit of peer pressure. Peer pressure is actually number one with regard to this issue that we are talking about. My friends are drinking. My friends are doing like this. I want to fit into that friends. And when you come to, for example, Nyayo, in a community with almost 20,000 residents, you cannot stop, I cannot stop my son or my daughter from moving out of the house when she has nothing to do to go and socialize with her friends down there. And I cannot follow her all the time. So you can imagine what happens when she goes out with her friends, when they are talking along the corridors, along the avenues within the organized community. So there's a bit of that peer pressure that has a significant influence, especially as they transition between academic journeys, like from high school to college, or from primary school to high school. So that will be a nice an area that the communities can intervene. So in terms of intervention, looking at recreational activities that can be able to stop that kind of peer pressure, to take away their potential to influence addiction. The other bit is we need, within communities, we have experts. Like Reverend Malaba has said, we have experts, like Boniface is an expert, is really involved into this. When you ask the community where you are, where you stay, and ask, for example, these days we have WhatsApp group and Facebook platforms where communities organize and they share their issues. When you just ask who is involved in guiding and counseling, can we get, people will pop out and say, look, I work in guiding and counseling sector, I do this, I'm a mentor, for boys or for the girl child. People will always come out and say, yeah, these are services we are able to offer. Reach out to the members within the community that can be used to sensitize and to provide guidance and counseling to these young people. The other bit, at the university, there is something we call Alcoholic Anonymous. I think we have a Kenyan-wide group, but we can narrow down to community level. We can narrow down to community level and see if we can be able to establish Alcoholic Anonymous groups. At the Southeastern Kenya University where I work, we have these groups. We have a group for students and we have a group for staff members. And these groups are active. You know, they form these days because of, thanks to COVID, meetings are a bit more of just online like the one we are having. The group members are able to log into such a Zoom meeting anonymously, so without really revealing their identity because of stigmatization issues. They can be able to log into this kind of meetings, and then they are able to share out their issues, they share their experiences as they journey together towards doing away with addiction. Because I think alcoholic AA involves around 12 steps towards ending addiction. So we can think of having Alcoholic Anonymous groups embedded within our communities. The other bit that I can talk about as part of intervention is more of a mentorship. Let's have some mentorship programs for the young people. And again, if you tap into our communities, we have a lot of experts who work in these areas. Let's get into these mentorship programs for our young people so that then they are able to see some positive sides of life. I have to say this, that most of us here are products of 844. I'm a product of 844. And I'm a bit excited about the CBC, the way it is, although with all problems associated and here and there, teething problems. But I've looked at CBC, the way it's being implemented and things like that. And it offers a bit of a hope for the future generation. Why? Because 844 puts a lot of pressure on academic performance. It puts a lot of pressure on getting grades, like you have to get an A. I pay a lot of money for you to study. So if my son is not able to get an A and to pursue medicine at that a program that I prefer, yeah, then issues of addiction sets in, because there's a bit of academic stress that was associated with this particular learning system. But CBC sort of tries to diffuse academic in terms of grades away and explore more of the talents and other alternative ways in which the young people can come and be productive in society. So let's look into mentorship programs and also try to find a way in which these can be embedded within our communities. Let's look at the role of social media. We always ignore this, and again, it goes back to parents. I work from 8 to 5. I leave very early in the morning because of the jam. I leave my house at, I don't know, 5 a.m. in the morning. I leave even before my children go to school. I come very late in the evening. Over the weekend, when I can spend some time with my children, I am busy either going for a social event, or if I'm in the house, I'm busy on social media, catching up. So if my children ask for my attention, I sort of just tell them either they watch cartoon or I chase them to go and play outside. So let's look at the issue of role models in our communities. But the best role model that a young person can have starts with the parent, starts with the father, starts with the mother, starts with the guardian, who are all part and parcel of our communities. Social media is a powerful platform that is complicating these issues of alcoholism and drug abuse. I think I can connect this together with the role models or celebrities in quotes. And these days they are called influencers. You see, even in Kenya, there are many, and I'll be a bit critical of this. What you see the Kenyan influencers doing on social media, on Instagram, because they earn some money from the trade which they are doing, which is really good, but they are just displaying this hardcore alcohol, Johnny Walker, I don't know, the other, these very expensive drinks, and they show cigars. And our young people get influenced by this. I want to be like so and so. Look at the way he's doing. He can buy this expensive alcohol because he's doing things like that. And therefore, let's look at the role of social media. Let's look at our celebrities, in quotes, even getting out of our borders, as we were influenced by celebrities like Michael Jackson. And we know these are people who unfortunately passed on because of alcoholism and drug addiction. So we really have a lot of work to do as organized communities, and it is very, very interesting, and it's a very commendable job that Henry and the group is doing. Let me just say, I think my time is almost up. Let me say about one thing that is quite interesting, and which I've seen at the University of Nairobi. If students from University of Nairobi are logged in, I think they can perhaps chip in also. They have developed an app called RADA University of Nairobi app. And the app offers alternative. It offers a platform which the young people are able to communicate with regard to issues that they are going through, be it drugs and alcoholism, be it mental health, be it gender-based violence, and so many things, HIV, AIDS. It's a whole package of information that university students are able to access through the app. And the reason behind the developing of such kind of apps was because the people, the young guys are a bit shy. They're a bit, they don't know how to approach a lecturer. They don't know how to come and report, for example, to authorities, like this and so is selling drugs. Or if they are addicted, they are a bit afraid to approach counselors because of stigmatization. So the app allows these young people to log in, get access to counselors who are anonymous, but professionally approved by Nakada and the university, and therefore they are able to communicate and share out and get help. So Henry and the group, we can perhaps think of maybe duplicating this kind of apps. And these days, young people have access to smartphones and they have access to the bundles which we buy for them to keep them busy. And therefore, if they have apps in their hand that are able to share this information, we can be able to at least intervene. As I end up, because most of the issues, most of the points I had have already been talked about by Boniface and Reverend Malaba, I'm just trying to pick out what else that we can be able to share. As I end, the decision, really, what we can really do for me is really to provide sensitization, and I cannot insist on this. For us at the university, we sensitize every semester, 2-3 sensitization seminars. Sensitization. Let the people know, provide information, let them know. If you get any platform where you can let someone know the impact, the type of drugs and how it affects their future life and how they affect their performance, please, let's have more and more sensitization. In the end, it is always come to what we call an individual decision, because the group, the community can intervene, the parents can really help out there, Kara can come in, the Komarok and other groups can come really and provide all this, but it always goes to the individual decision. The young men, the young women who are listening to me in this forum, please, it comes to your individual decision. When I tell you taking alcohol is bad, I will not monitor you. You'll have to be free and you have to make that personal decision that consuming this actually will affect my life negatively. And for them to be able to make those personal decisions, we need to provide them with information. And for those who are already affected, we need to provide platforms such as this one where they can come out for help. So let me stop there for now. I'm very, very grateful for having me share a bit of my opinion. I know we'll communicate in the panel where some questions will be asked and I'll be able to respond. Back to you, Henry, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rek, for those very clear points. Yes, you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you very much for those very clear points, well articulated. And of course, the end of it is what we are also trying to promote, sensitization. I agree with you. There's need for more information to the public so that they can be able to make informed decisions and informed choices, whether they are youth, adults, or whoever they are. I think once they have the right information, then it can guide them in making the right decision moving forward. And just picking that up on that is that Nakada has also been trying to do quite a bit of work in regards to issues of sensitization, and I'm sure the CEO is going to touch on that. As a matter of fact, we have an MOU with Nakada to try and see how we can be able to work together and collaborate. And we hope and expect that moving forward, we should be able to intensify the aspect of sensitization, and of course, coming up with other activities that can be able to support the fight against alcohol and drug abuse. So before Mr. Okioma comes in to talk to us, I just want to indicate that after his presentation, we are going to have a plenary. So immediately or even during his presentation, if you have a question, there's a way, there's an opportunity for you to raise your hand. There's a button you can click to raise your hand. I'll be able to see it, and then we'll give you a chance to ask your question, 1 minute to ask your question, make your comment. So please raise your hand and we'll pick it up. You can also be able to post your question or comment on the chat box, and we'll look at it and direct it to the right speaker. So we have all our speakers on board. So if you have a question for any of them, please prepare, you raise your hand, we'll give you a chance, and you can be able to indicate who you want to answer your question or to respond to your comment. Having said that, I will now want to invite Mr. Victor Okioma, who is the CEO of Nakada. That is the National Authority for the Campaign Against Alcohol and Drug Abuse in Kenya. the agency directly responsible to the subject that we are discussing today about alcohol and drug abuse. And he'll share with us what they're doing, what they're planning to do, and how they can work with communities like us across the country to ensure that we are pulling in the same direction and we are contributing to the fight against alcohol and drug abuse. So without taking much time, Mr. Victor Okioma, if you can hear me, please proceed and speak to us.
Henry, thank you for the opportunity to make my comments. I know there are a few people perhaps who may not have seen my face. I'm trying to put my, I don't know whether you are the one controlling it from your end. Because
you should be able to do it.
I'm trying to put the video on, but it's not agreeing. I'll seek the intervention of my ICT people. But in the meantime, let me just start by congratulating you for this forum that you have created. Yeah. I think there was a mistake. You can hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
And I hope the rest are hearing me. So I was saying that for Nakada, we are grateful that you were able to organize this opportunity for us to speak to each other. And I am encouraged by the comments I'm hearing from various speakers, which actually converge to the point that we have a problem as a country in terms of alcohol and drug abuse. And from the word go, the problem we have as a country cannot just be left to Nakada alone. The drug situation in the country is such that it's okay. It's such that we all need each other, and the war cannot be won unless we all join in this war. Our mandate, for those who may wish to know, is anchored on two legislative instruments. One is the National Authority for the Campaign Against Alcohol and Drug Abuse Act of 2012, which clearly defines our mandate. And of course, we were given additional responsibilities through the enactment of the Alcoholic Drinks Control Act, which gave us some extra mandate, particularly to regulate the industry of alcohol. But outside those two legal instruments that give us our mandate, we also leverage on several instruments, like, of course, the excise duty. We have a lot of foreign alcohol that comes in without knowing where it comes from. And of course, the KRA helps us to control that, because if it is not channeled through the normal control entry points, then you will obviously find a problem with that kind of alcohol. We also use the Excise Duty Act, which is the law that creates the Kenya Bureau of Standards. And in the alcohol industry, therefore, our concern around quality of alcohol in the market is addressed by leveraging on the Standards Act to ensure that everything that is in the market in terms of alcohol is actually certified as safe by having the quality mark by the Kenya Bureau of Standards. So we work very, very, very closely with those agencies, including the public health, the police, the national administration. These are very, very key partners that we use in terms of addressing the challenge of alcohol and drug abuse in the country. As an authority, our major occupation is basically to coordinate response, the national response to the challenge of alcohol and drug abuse. And we do so by actually carrying out several surveys that indicate to us what the situation is like. And on the basis of these surveys, we are able to formulate strategies to counter the problem of alcohol and drug abuse in the country. Now, if I can just give you a snapshot of the situation in the country. When we did a national survey in 2017, 38%, I mean 34.8% of Kenyans have had some substance of abuse, one or the other. But those who are on regular use, particularly on the substance of alcohol, they are actually 12.2%. That will tell you something about how the situation looks like in the country. And if you look at, for example, the other substances that are being abused in the country, we have tobacco, and this is an area of great concern, followed by miraa, followed by marijuana at 7.5%, sorry, at 4.5%. And of course, there are things which you look like small figures, less than 1% on heroin and cocaine. But if you go to the coast region, you will realize that the impact of heroin and particularly heroin is a serious matter of concern because of the sheer number of people who are engaged in drug use of these very, very, very harmful substances like heroin. We did another survey that is interesting by looking at the preference of drugs in the institutions of learning. And from the survey, the one on secondary school, which we did in 2016, showed that alcohol was leading in abuse. And those people who had taken at least tested alcohol in secondary schools was at 23.4%, with a regular use, those who are regularly using it being 3.8%. These figures tell you, if you look at the community, I've said in terms of alcohol, it is 12.2%. In secondary schools, it is 3.8%. We also did in primary schools, and the figure is close to what it looks like in secondary school, and that is at 2.6%. The message from these figures, and I can go out and say tobacco in secondary schools, those who are on regular use, 2.5%. In primary, 3.2%. If you go, for example, the biggest problem we have is in prescription drugs, 3.6% in secondary schools, which is way above the general population. And therefore, these figures I'm throwing around will clearly demonstrate that as a country, we have a serious problem, and we need to actually play our part in trying to save this country from going down the train of, going down the road of, problems that are related to alcohol and drug abuse. If you look at the persons who are affected because of taking alcohol, the people who have developed the substance-related disorders, they stand at 10.4%. Now, that being just the picture of the situation both in our institutions, one will obviously get the impression that as a country, we are headed the wrong direction and we need to do something. We are planning 2 national surveys this year. One is on the rapid assessment of the status of alcohol and drug abuse in the country. And the other one, we'll be doing a national survey on the preferences of alcohol and drug abuse in our institutions of higher learning, colleges and universities. And I can guess from the trend that we have tracked from primary to secondary, I can guess that the situation is going to be any better. The situation will be a matter of great concern. Now, I think, let me start by saying that based on these surveys, we carry out a number of programs, and I am accompanied by my director in charge of public education, advocacy, and rehabilitation. Those are actually, that department carries most of our two major programs on public education and then rehabilitation. Now, as I've indicated, there is no way that we can manage to address the challenges posed by drug and substance abuse in the country without engaging in partnerships. I have the blessings of my board to engage in partnerships, and Kara will agree that we have signed a memorandum that clearly stipulates areas where we would like to engage. And I think, to me, Henry, this is one of the kind of things we want to be doing. And I appreciate that you have created this platform for us to be able to share this kind of concerns. So we are open to other partners to join and work together. Boniface was talking, he did not mention that I was actually very instrumental in the establishment of ABRAC. And the concern that we had as an authority is that we had a lot of actors in the area of rehabilitation, and yet we did not have a very well regulated and controlled environment. It is for this reason that actually we agreed to set up a ABRAC, basically to self-regulate them, the industry. This was a self-regulated kind of approach that we used, and I think that is best practice. Instead of being controlled, just put yourself in an association where you set your own rules, so long as they are aligned to what the government expects. And therefore, I look forward to having more partners coming our way. I am happy that through Kara, we have actually participated in, I think, two major, end of year meetings where we have had to articulate our concerns. To be more specific, I want to say that Kara and the other residents associations, we treat you as a very, very, very critical partner, because if you figure out how many Kenyans have some form of residential associations, whether they are under your umbrella or not, we are talking about, I think, a very good chunk of the Kenyan population. And therefore, by engaging with you, we believe we are going to reach out to these many, many residents associations around the country. And we believe that through these interactions, we are able to engage the parents and the young people in those residents associations. And the key among the issues we want to address through this partnership is prevention and advocacy programs. We would like to see resident associations around the country take a day in the year to speak to their residents and to highlight some of the challenges that are caused by drugs. And we believe that this is a very, very, very structured way of engaging the resident associations in terms of highlighting the dangers and the harmful effects of alcohol and drugs in our country. Other areas where we are looking forward to a strong partnership with the CARA and other associations and those other structured community-based organizations. Is in the area of enforcement and compliance. Kara, you will recall we have had a lot of issues around bars operating in residential areas, and the law is very clear there should be no bars in residential areas, only those that have designated business section within the residential areas where you can find they have shops, they have, if there is anything that is planned as a business center or as a commercial center within the residential areas, we have no problem. But what we see as we do our surveillance and the inspections is mushrooming of bars within residential areas, which have become a nuisance. And we look forward to working very, very closely with the Kara and other community-based organizations to try and raise these concerns and actually take action against this, because you have the law to back you up. So let's work together to ensure that the laws are enforced, because the law is clear. There should be no residential bars in residential areas, and therefore we look forward to working with these organized community organizations, faith-based organizations, Kara being one of the community-based organizations, to try and ensure that people comply with the law and that there are no bars that are operating in residential areas. We work very closely with very many other agencies of government. Whenever we are carrying out this enforcement, we have the police, we have the national government administrative officers, public health, we have KRA, we have KEPS, and we have other agencies that support us. So raise these concerns to us. Even you can use our toll-free line 1192 and report any offending bars that are operating within the designated residential areas. Well, I'm yet to hear residents associations, or of course I know some community-based organizations have actually come up with rehabilitation centers. As an authority, we are responsible for the licensing, inspection and licensing or accrediting of these rehabilitation facilities. We want to encourage. Kara, you can even show the way by coming up with a rehabilitation center somewhere to address some of the challenges of your residents. But more importantly, we want to invite other community-based organizations to take advantage of the opportunities that exist in establishment of rehabilitation, so that we can have facilities that can address the challenges we are facing as a country, where we have, I think, so many people that deserve these services, and yet they are not enough, and we have a lot of a demand for these services in the country. That is another area where I invite community-based organizations to invest in, and we will work with you. We will help you to come up with a facility that has a complement of skills that are required to be able to respond to the needs of Kenyans who are suffering from addiction. When we talk about treatment and rehabilitation, we want to complete the cycle by asking that we as residents associations, those of us from our resident association that have gone out for treatment and are back in the community, try to have this support mechanism within our resident associations, so that where you can speak to them, follow up to ensure that they are not relapsing. These are other opportunities where we welcome residents association and other community-based organizations to be able to work very closely to people who have been in addiction and are in recovery, so that you create within the residential areas, within the association, support mechanisms to assist those of our brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers who are having challenges in addiction. Well, Boniface has mentioned about research. We welcome the research and we want to work together. If you are planning to carry out some research, find out from us whether we can work together so that we do the same. Formulation of policies, we have actually finalized the national policy and it's going through the vetting process within the government protocols. And we believe that soon this policy will be out, and we have used the experience and the kind of skills that this country has in the area of addiction. And we believe that when the policy is finally done with through cabinet and is out for implementation, it will address a number of issues and gaps that currently exist in the management of addiction. I want to say that as Nakada, we are very open to any community-based organization that would like to start programs in the area of prevention, in the area of research, in the area of training, and we will be out there to support you and work with you to ensure that you make some impactful contribution to our community. Kara, finally, I want to say that let us, particularly now as we go into the festive season, this is a time where you find, the children are coming back home, the celebrations will be starting soon. We will be doing this in the presence of our children, and we have challenges around parenting. We hope that we will work together to ensure that those parties that are being carried out in a manner that undermines the gains that we are making in trying to dissuade our young people from engaging in drug abuse, we can work together to sensitize the parents, tell them that the children are back home, please create the good environment for the children to remain free from, the temptations of abusing drugs while they are with us in our homes. From the surveys, and I welcome all of you to visit our website and look at various surveys that we have carried out. Parenting is still a big challenge, and we are actually responsible as parents for the drug situation among our young people, because I can recall one of the Minister for Education in one of his address, and I agree with him totally. Children do what we do, not what we tell them. What we do is what they do. So when you drink before them, in front of your children, they don't come to complain and ask for rehabilitation for your child because you have just made him to do what you are doing. I want to wish you well, and any questions that will be asked from the participants in this engagement, my director, Dr. Yvonne is around, will answer all the questions that you might direct to Nakada. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bwana CEO, for sharing with us all that information. And maybe before we move, I just want to also add that as Kara, one of the areas that we work with Nakada is to appreciate and motivate resident associations that are doing one or two things in regard to alcohol and drug abuse. So we have an award scheme where we reward our members who are involved with the fight against alcohol and drug abuse as one of the components. And Nakada has been a very active partner. And of course, we look forward to having them on board again this year. And for community or resident associations who are working in that area, I encourage you to submit your entries. The submission is still open until Friday. Submit your entries on the work you are doing on alcohol and drug abuse, and you can be sure that it will go through the process of identifying the winners and runners-up. And with partners like Nakada, we'll be able to recognize and appreciate you and encourage you to do even more. But of course, also use your work as a case study for others to learn from and replicate within their neighborhood. So we appreciate Nakada in that regard, because I know they've been supporting us in terms of rewarding those kind of resident associations as one of the categories that we look at under our scheme of Resident Associations Excellence Awards. So thank you, CEO, for that. Like I mentioned earlier, now we are going to go to plenary. And I did say that if you have a question or a comment, you can raise your hand so that you can be able to pick that up and you can direct it to the right person. So this is the time, if you have anything to say or any question to ask or any comment to make, please, you are free to raise your hands. I can see the first hand has gone up. There's somebody called Fanuel Abuya. Fanuel Abuya, I can see your hand up. If you have a question, you can proceed and ask your question, unmute your mic and ask your questions, indicate who it is being directed to. In the meantime, there's a poll that is running, so you can be able to vote on that poll. There's some questions that have been posted there, so you can respond to them as we progress. But Fanuel Abuya, you can unmute your mic and ask your question or make your comment. Proceed. Finally, you can unmute, or if there's a challenge, let's go to the next hand, Usalama Forum. Usalama Forum can ask your question.
Okay, thank you so much, Henry.
Finally, I can see you have unmuted. Who is that?
This is Caleb. This is Caleb Wanga.
Oh, Caleb, proceed.
Yes. Actually,
proceed, Caleb. You can hear you.
Yes, I wanted to ask the CEO of Nakada, is the current laws effective enough to deal with the drugs in the country? Because issue of drugs looks like the second most difficult issue in the society, loved after AIDS or some of these terminal diseases. Drugs is everywhere, and you can clearly see effect on drugs even in the behavior of students in school, because they can access drugs even if they are within schools. Are the laws effective enough to deal with the drugs in this country? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Caleb, for being very precise and to the point. Finally, are you able now to speak or to ask your question? Okay, Fanuel still has an issue. Ruto Kolem, there's a hand for Ruto Kolem. Please ask your question.
Yeah, nilikuwa nauliza.
Yes, proceed. Unmute your mic and proceed. Okay.
Yeah.
Ruto also has a challenge. Okay,
Hello.
Proceed. Yes, Ruto, endelea.
Thank you. Yeah, asante sana, nashukuru. Thanks for my boss. Thanks for APRAC and also Nakada. I'm in recovery. I'm also celebrating 50 years sober. I'm from Baringo County, and the office has been helpful, both offices. Someone mentioned of if can we have county coordinators, residents associations that can help to coordinate and connect and all needs of residents, address matters concerning mental health. Yes, we have been volunteering for a while since 2018 with Nakada, and also APRAC as the other body which have been helping out. And Nakada also helped waved me. I thank you for the UTC courses. I think we can strengthen on more of community-based programs, outreaches, and also school-based programs. because I've seen this work and I have success story in the ground. And also it helps me because I'm in recovery and also trying at the end of the day to lift up someone. So my humble request is to looking forward to we work together. As also my county has a challenge. We don't have a rehabilitation at the moment. You find out that it's becoming hard to raise the issue. We requesting the head office through our the notary office. We come together and then we look this in a bigger picture. Because my brothers out there.
Thank you very much, Ruto.
Yes, thank you, sir. I'm humble. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruto. Thank you for that comment.
Thank you,
let's quickly take a few more, and please make it very precise and very short so that we can have more people asking questions. There's a hand, there's no name, Oppo A31. I don't know who is that. Maybe you can log in using your name. It's Oppo A31. If you know who that is, you can ask your question. If not, then let's go to Sylvia Kerubo. Unmute your mic and ask your question, Sylvia Kerubo.
Henry.
Sylvia? Yes, somebody's trying to talk.
Yeah, this is Dr. Orek. There are also a number of questions on the chat platform. We can also look
yes, we'll actually come to that. Sylvia still have a challenge asking a question. Beatrice Kwamboka.
Henry, can you hear me?
Yes, proceed.
Thank you so much, Henry, and for our speakers. My question goes to the presenter from Nakada, and to echo the sentiments of one of the listeners who was asked a question on community-based process as one of the quick strategies in terms of mitigating drug and substance abuse in our communities. My question could be, I know there was a call on organized groups or organizations that are interested in working with Nakada to come forth and reach out in terms of collaborations and partnerships. But you see, in our communities, we already structured as either residents associations and Nyumba Kumi. So what are some of the quick low-lying fruits in terms of, organizing or reaching out to these organized communities or residents for sensitization and curbing the menace on drugs and substance abuse? Thank you, and back to you, Henry.
Thank you very much for that comment and that question. Let's have Brian, please, quickly. Brian, your question or comment. Unmute your mic.
Hello.
Brian. Yes, please.
Henry, my question is,
yes.
What is the government doing?
Proceed.
Yeah, what is the government doing to ensure that we have enough rehabilitation centers? And then how holistic are these rehabilitation centers? Because
Brian, we have lost you.
Oh, I'm saying,
I think there's a problem with your network, Brian.
I'm saying, what is the government doing
to do what?
to ensure we have enough rehabilitation centers in our estates, for example, or our communities? And how holistic are these rehabs?
Okay, thank you. I think we get the question, Brian. Let's have the last one from Tracy Mogaka. Tracy Mogaka, unmute and ask your question.
Hello.
Yes,
My question is, with the current age of youth, most of the people who resort to drug abuse is usually because of mental health issues, which come from either lack of jobs or poor living standards. What is Nakada doing, or what is the government doing in general to ensure that the root problem, the root source of actually drug abuse comes from is being solved? So like, how are you guys to ensure that, are you guys working together with the government to ensure that youths get employed, create job opportunities or something like that? And also our mental health, what are you guys doing in regards to mental health?
Thank you very much, Tracy, for that. I think we've taken the questions of those who raised their hands. And like some was mentioned earlier by Dr. Rex, there are some more questions on the chat box, which we are also going to look at. But what I'm going to request in the interest of time is that we are going to go back to our various presenters, and based on the questions that have been asked, I know there are some that are directly asked Nakada, so we are going to have them last because the questions are very specific and direct on the issue people want to know about, so we're going to have them last. But each of the presenter, I'm going to request to make your comments based on the comments that have been raised by participants and the questions that are being raised on the chat box. Yes, and then there are some questions that are also sent in advance before this forum started. So most of them were to Nakada. So I'm just going to ask the CEO to also look at them because we shared them. And the major questions are around having alcohol and drug being sold around schools and within neighborhoods, and what can be done in regard to that. I know we've touched a bit on that in our presentation. And also the issue of structures and mechanisms available to citizens or wananchi to report cases of alcohol and drug abuse, where they are and how they can be accessed. I'm sure Nakada has touched on that a bit, but they can respond. There's also the issue of existing policies. And the question was that are the roles of community leaders, school administrators and families captured in public policies for the fight against alcohol, drug and substance abuse? Somebody has asked a question about if the policies and laws are effective. And I'm sure Nakada is going to respond to that. So we can have Boniface Dirangu to take up the floor once again and share your comments. And specifically, there's a question that was talking about how do you assist a person from a rehab not to fall back? There are cases of relapse after somebody goes through the rehab process. So as APRAC, are there steps you are taking, or are there measures in place to ensure that those who have come from those rehab facilities do not relapse or fall back? So you can start by answering that question as you also make your comments and response to some of the questions that have been asked. So Belfast Dirangu, please. Dirangu, are you there?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
You can hear the networks a bit.
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me? Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay.
I can hear
Thank
you.
you very much. Yeah, thank you very much for the questions. I'll try to respond as much as possible to the ones that have been online, wherever I think it is my call. I want to also thank this opportunity to thank my fellow panelists for answering a lot of the questions on which they'll be answering anyway. APRAC, for those ones who have asked what APRAC is the Association of rehab center owners, and which actually were helped by Nakada to get started. Dr. Okioma has been very helpful. He's the one who really pushed us to start off an association where we could answer and help answer some of these questions that you raised. Now, there was a question about holistic. How holistic are these programs? I think that person broke off a few times. And the training around the rehabilitation centers is essentially accredited by Nakada. And all these treatment centers that are fall under our association have, in the first place, have to have an accreditation certificate by Nakada. Now, Nakada has been there from the year 2001. And during this time, they have set out training for addictions that are essentially four-phased. One is a biological aspect. The biological aspect of rehabilitation that involves mental health, that involves doctors and psychiatrists and nurses. Then there's a psychosocial, where it's our major forte for about 90 days, behavioral in nature, and that involves a lot of training around addictions. There's certification for which people have to be qualified to be accredited as rehabilitation experts and addiction counselors. It's a specialized field. Then, of course, the last bit, which is perhaps the most important, is the spiritual component of it. And this is spiritual, it's not religion. It is so it's a biopsychosocial spiritual program. So the comprehensivity of the program, I thought I should highlight. And then there is also an area of relapse that I thought I've been asked to focus on. And relapse, sometimes, in my opinion, relapse can be overemphasized because a lot of times we only look at one component of the rehabilitation process, and which is, has a person picked up a drink or not since they got into rehabilitation. So now that, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many professionals who work in the addiction field, is yes, while important, Mamaka should not be the only narrative around whether rehabilitation works or not. For people who get into rehab, you can be sure there's a lot that happens. A person like me, who's a chairperson of rehabilitation centers in Kenya, a person like me who's a chairperson of rehabilitation center in Kenya, and I'm now 18 years clean. Before my recovery period of time, I was essentially, I had a serious number of relapses myself. Sometimes a relapse can be a reason why somebody has to dig deeper, look at afresh about certain aspects about their recovery that they had not looked at. So I find sometimes that our understanding of relapse is almost like an all or nothing approach, that if somebody picks up a drink again, or picks up a cigarette again, or picks up and we lost everything. There's so much that is gained.
First, I think we are losing you.
The period of time, and I
First, your network is a problem.
I think they're here, and it's interrupt. Call me at this time. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. No, it's fluctuating.
Can you hear me now?
First, proceed.
Can you hear me?
First. Yes.
So I think with regard to relapse, I've tried to be clear that the measurement of whether a person picks up a drink or not should not be overemphasized. Whereas it is as important, it is very important, but it cannot be the only measurement of success in terms of the rehabilitation process. We have had major. Can you hear me?
Some noise on your background.
Oh, that's not me.
Oh, that's not you.
That's Panda Nico.
Please mute your mic if you're not speaking.
Can I, my brother, I think I have answered the two questions that I had been asked, and that is the holistic nature of the program and whether or not relapse. Now, I would also want to add.
Briefly, Boniface, so that you can go.
Yes, I would also like to add that sometimes we put a lot of pressure on Nakada. And what is the government doing about this? What is the government doing about this? And put a lot of pressure. Now, I as a person who is an insider, I look at what is possible and what they can do.
Okay, one further.
And hello, are you there?
You are fluctuating. I think maybe you can conclude at that because we are losing you at one point.
Yes, I can conclude and say we ought to think about what it is we can do. As much as we think about what government can do, let's also really offer some support, some form of support to Nakada. If we expect them to do all the things that we need to do, because this is such a huge job, they can't do it by themselves. We have to support them. We have to help them. We have to play our role. We have to. It is not something Nakada can do by themselves. Well, the best they can do is coordinate us, coordinate our efforts. I think I'm hoping you have heard me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. We heard you. So, Reverend Malaba, maybe you can also make a comment and perhaps you can indicate if there's a way the resident association wants to learn from what you're doing, if there's a way they can access that information, or we can arrange some kind of exchange visit. I think we're happy to do that, but you can make your comment as you also address that particular point. Malaba?
Hello, thank you so much, Henry. I have a lot to say, but I just want to respond to one or two issues that have been raised. Just going back to emphasize the need for effective school programs, teaching younger people to resist drugs by developing personal and social skills, such as decision-making, stress management, communication, social interaction, conflict resolution, and assertiveness. Because once they are equipped with those skills, they are able to remain focused because they understand that there are risks, and that if they don't avoid risks or bad groups, they will end up into a lot of trouble. Another issue at a higher level is the issue of criminal justice, the law enforcement, where we have the community policing issues, problem-oriented policing, reducing drug availability, and criminal justice is not going to help very much where we are residents. We are not going to expose ourselves to a lot of drug barons, the drug cartels. Some of our people have been hijacked and left in the bush for 3 nights. I mean, 3 occasions. It's not easy to just stand before people and begin preaching against drugs, unless you're in the church like myself. And I'm going to offer something based on biblical therapy for those who are Christians. But before I do that, I just want to say that there are a lot of risks for those who are in the resident associations who wanted to help. We are not going to homes to preach against drugs, but we are just sensitizing people through meetings, through community-based organizations, representatives, Nyumba Kumi, on the risks that are there. But again, the people who are distributing these drugs live with us. Wanauza peremende, 1 shilling, mabuyu, 1 shilling, cookies, which are already laced with drugs. And I want Nakada and my brother Boniface to begin following up with the KRA. Are these things coming from overseas? Are they locally manufactured? If they are locally manufactured, where is CAPES? How are they helping us to avoid our children taking things which are deadly to their lives. At the community level, we talked about loss of productivity, related crime, social issues, imbalances, social inequalities, socio-economic is what I'm talking about. That maybe as these associations, we need to come up with the programs that can offer life skills to the young people. We talk about life skills in every meeting we go. Most of those who are involved in drug trafficking don't have life skills, don't have anything to do. They're just idle, they're at home. And as recent associations, our role is to mobilize them so that we don't lose them to bad company. And just to finish, because of time, I'm talking about faith-based treatment against drug addiction. That we say that the effects across all the demographies, regardless of race, color, gender, and religion, including the Christian faith, that all of us are faced with this challenge of if you have a problem at home, you run out of home because you have a domestic problem, or there is no food, or there's something that's not doing well at home. This is how people get into drugs, including elderly people, because they are just away from home. And based on the Christian principles, we say that all the principles of almost all Christian beliefs are centered around the life and teachings of Jesus Christ. That Christian addiction treatment provides a safe environment for people of all these different sectors to heal from addiction with the like-minded individuals that focuses on streamlining, strengthening their relationships with Jesus. Before addiction was well known in the 1940s, people did not know what it was. We're just calling it a moral defect or sin. But having come to know that it's resulting from bad behaviors, bad choices, we have now a choice to go back to church, seek our pastor's support. We go back to the Bible, read the Bible, teach our children, boost them with the relevant knowledge so that they are around us. When we come back home, what do we tell our children? One of the speakers said that let us intensify our discussions with the children that are relevant, that are going to help them understand that if they get into trouble, the problems are going to be on for a long time, because treating an addict takes a lot of time. You need a specialist, you need to diagnose what it is, you need to do detoxing, you need to support them. They may also need microloans to do business, because having come out of the drug cartels, atakaa kwa nyumba akikula nini, the friends still follow him, watamrudisha kwa madawa. So those are some of the comments I wanted to make. Time is not going to allow me. Henry, I have a lot to say, but those who want to learn from Comoro Christian Association, they are free to call me. We are a team of many executive committee members. We are willing to share our experience. And of course, working closely in close coordination with the law enforcement agents and the coalition of partners and CBOs in the area. You have churches, you have mosques, you have service providers, including health, including community health volunteers who are willing to help in this matter. So Henry, I think that is all for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Reverend Malaba, for that.
Henry, can you allow me to respond? I want to respond to my question.
I wanted to come after Dr. Rek. Or you?
I wanted to leave. I want to answer some questions. I'm rushing somewhere for another meeting.
Okay. Okay, then you can respond, and then you can have Dr. Rek after that.
And I will only answer 2 questions. The rest will be answered by my director of programs, because they relate to programs. One, somebody was asking whether we have sufficient laws to control the issues of alcohol and drug abuse in the country. And I want to say that alcohol and drug control is a behavioral challenge, and laws cannot be enough. But the legal frameworks that we have in place for control of alcohol and drug abuse in the country, which is the Alcoholic Drinks Control Act, and then the Anti-Narcotic and Psychotropic Substances Act. Those provide enough safeguard with the recent amendments to help control the problem. But I can tell you, you cannot have enough laws to stop people from drinking and abusing drugs. What we are focusing on is more sensitization, awareness creation, and that is where the organizations like the community-based organizations are very handy to try and help people change their ways. The other issue that I want to respond to so that I can allow my director to respond to the program-related issues is the one on policy formation. And whether we involve people in the formulation of our laws and policies. I want to say it is a constitutional requirement that for any policy formulation, public participation is mandatory. In fact, we have seen courts overturn policies and certain regulations on account that they did not engage the public for their input. So we are completely guided by the Constitution on how we formulate our policies, and there are standards that you cannot go below. Yeah, so I think that is what I want to say, and the rest of the other questions, Director Yvonne is here to respond.
Thank you very much, CEO, for that response, and of course for your insight on the topic of discussion today. We certainly are going to engage with Nakada. Of course, I can see there's a lot of awareness to be done and many other activities. So we'll be making follow-up on this. But now that we are still within Nakada, maybe we can just allow the directors to respond, and then we finish with Dr. Orek. So I don't know who is going to go from Nakada after the CEO.
I will go. Thank you, Chair. This is Dr. Orlando. I will respond to the other questions. So to the question raised by Ruto Kolem on how we can strengthen the community-based programs. So Nakada does not work alone. We work with different partners. We actually have a register of different CBOs and the NGOs that work in the field, and we try to bring them together to support as much as we can. So we join into the activities and they join into our activities. So what I'd recommend is if there is any CBO that would like to work with Nakada, kindly write to us and we'll be ready and welcome to work with you. There's the other question that was raised by Tracy. She wanted to find out what is Nakada doing in solving the root problem, particularly for youth and mental illness. Just to highlight that substance use disorders are also classified as a mental illness. During the trainings that are organized by Nakada to ensure that the education given out there in terms of prevention or treatment for substance use disorders is evidence-based, we ensure that screening for mental illness is factored in. As Tracy rightfully put it, there are other issues that lead people to use substances. So the trainings and during treatment, these other issues are also addressed. Is it an issue of stress? Is it an issue of domestic violence? All of these are taken care of. So for the youth, during our prevention programs, our psychoeducation programs, we try to touch on the areas that might actually trigger somebody to use substances. There was another question by Brian who was asking about rehab centers and how holistic they are. When we are looking at rehabs being holistic, we are not just looking at them as a one-stop shop. We are looking at from outreach, before even the person gets into the program, we have who we call the community health workers. We have the outreach workers who are able to get to them in the den or in the drinking bars. Then it comes to the actual treatment. Here we are talking about the clinical team, the counselors, the multidisciplinary team. Then we come to the aftercare program. We have the skills program where people are trained so that if the issue was a job, by the time you're coming out of a rehab, you should be able to have a skill to be able to use after. Then there's the aspect of reintegration, which we are glad that Kara is on board, because that means then your members can be welcomed back after they have gone through treatment. So when Nakada is looking at it as holistic, we are saying that it is from before rehab all the way to after treatment and you're back into your community. And we really encourage for follow-up. Even when you're back in the community, follow-up has to be there. We focus on the aspect of skills building so that you do not go back the same way you came. And we can say that rehabs are right now trying. We have standards for treatment and rehabilitation programs that clearly outline the holistic aspect of rehabilitation. So yes, they are holistic. To get rehabs that have been accredited, it means Nakada has gone ahead to do an inspection and we are sure of what the rehabs do. Kindly visit the Nakada website and you'll be able to see rehabs that offer holistic programs. Somebody else asked about working with the rehabilitations, what Nakada is doing to help the number of rehabs in the country. So as we mentioned earlier, Nakada does not work alone. So Nakada works with different government partners. We work with county governments. So far, we've been able to work with about 11 county governments to support them in setting up rehabilitation programs. So check with your county governor and just see what programs are there. We work with them also in terms of trainings. Remember that with rehabilitation programs, they don't all have to be residential. Outpatient programs are also rehabilitation programs. Not everybody that uses a substance needs to go into a residential program. So we also have the ones we refer for outpatient. And if you check our website, you'll be able to find both outpatient and inpatient. You're welcome. If you'd like support in how to go about setting up a rehab, we are always ready to work with you. So those are the questions that had been raised during the panel discussions, but we had also received some questions prior. So I'll just go briefly through the ones that have not been touched yet. There was a question from Esther Nyakerario. She wanted to find out, why do teenagers engage in drug abuse and how can parents and communities be empowered to prevent such vices? Now, first thing to note is that teenage is a stage of development where hormones are all over. So this is somebody who needs a lot of guidance and needs a lot of support. So some of the triggers or factors that lead to substance use at this time, we're looking at the aspect of peer pressure. If their friends are using, chances are they will use. There is the aspect of coming from a dysfunctional family. If your parents are constantly fighting, if your parents are also using substances, chances are the teenager will use. There is the media influence. You watch TV, you're seeing people are using, and maybe they're the ones who seem to be doing well. So you might be tempted to use. Then there's the availability. There is a video trending right now of a student going to school with an alcohol bottle in their bag. And the mother was so sure the child does not use the substance. So in this case, we are saying if it is available, chances of experimenting are also high. We also have to highlight the need for positive parenting. Parents need to listen first. Parents need to be able to sit with their teenagers and walk through with them. When the teenagers feel they're being heard, chances are they will seek help. So it's not always just fighting. Listen to them so that you know what type of support they will need. Nakada offers sessions for positive parenting. The second question came from Michael Memusi. Memusi wanted to find out why alcohol or bars are near neighborhoods. And I think the CEO touched on this, but also just to mention that licensing of the alcoholic outlets is a devolved function, and it is the counties who have this responsibility. But if you have a bar within your resident area, kindly reach out to Nakada and we'll be able to reach out to the other enforcement partners and they'll be able to attend to you. Anthony Buana asked about how can Nakada assist CBOs to advocate against the vice of substance use. Nakada works with partners who reach out. So if you're a CBO and you'd like to work with Nakada, write to Nakada and we'll be able to invite you for a sit down and find out on better ways of partnership. We are currently working on a MOU with the NGO Council of Kenya, and that means that all the NGOs and all the CBOs will be able to work together in this way. Nakada also has 9 regional offices. These regional offices are in the former provinces. And in all those regional offices, we have a database of these CBOs and CSOs and the NGOs. So you can reach out to any of our regional office and express this intention to work together, and we'll gladly work with you. Luca Mwandikwa asked if Nakada has internalized structures to report cases of alcohol and drug abuse. Yes, Nakada has. We have the toll-free helpline, 1192. It works 24 hours a day. You can always call in anonymously and report, and you'll be able to follow up. You can also send an email to info@nakada.go.ke. You can also send it to ceo@nakada.go.ke, and we'll be able to reach out to you. If you'd like to walk into any of our offices, they will always be welcomed and somebody will be able to attend to you. Catherine Gugi wanted to find out if Nakada has programs in schools. Yes, Nakada has programs in schools. We rolled out a program for primary school students, the Botvin Life Skills Program, that trains teachers in class 5 students, so that all the students, as they go through the levels, when they get to class 5, they'll go through this program. It's not a one-stop thing. It's a program that is continuous. So you get to class 5, we continue with this program all the way until class 8. That's why we are training the teachers so that the teachers continue rolling it over the years. We also have prevention guidelines that we worked with the Ministry of Education to develop, particularly for basic education institutions. This can also be found on our website. We work with SCAD, which is the Students' Campaign Against Drugs Abuse. We also work with Kenya Girl Guides. We have an MOU with them to be able to reach out to different schools on these areas. Mary wanted to find out what avenues she can follow to report on use of drugs in a residential unit, particularly case of smoking weed. And Mary, we are saying that weed is illegal in Kenya. You can report through our helpline 1192 or to the nearest police station around you, and somebody will take responsibility. Susan Gitau wanted to find out how Nyumba Kumi can be empowered to have skills in prevention, treatment, and continuum of care for substance use disorders. Nakada has trained community health workers in all the regions of Kenya. The idea behind this is to bring this service to the common mwananchi down there. It is, we have not reached the numbers that we want to reach, but it is a program that is still ongoing. So we are hoping that with working with the chiefs or the community health workers, all these Nyumba Kumis will have somebody who will be addressing their issues. We also have a planned training for chiefs all over Kenya. And with this, we are hoping again that we'll be able to reach to every part of Kenya. Peter Mushe wanted to find out if Nakada has a role to play in regard to noisy clubs in estates. Nakada This is the role of NEMA. But if you do not have their contacts, if you reach out to 1192, we'll be able to put you in contact with them. Sunita wanted to find out if there is a helpline at Nakada that young people can access to report alcohol and drug abuse. Yes, 1192 can be accessed by anyone for free, 24 hours a day. We offer counseling. We have trained counselors and psychologists, and we also use it to offer referral services to either outpatient, inpatient, or for cases of enforcement. To the last question, Eno Kachoki wanted to find out how can we prevent our youths from engaging in substance abuse in our gated communities? Again, it comes down to parenting. Parents need to take responsibility. Children are children, they need to be raised. So when there's this positive parenting, children will be heard. Also the aspect of rules. Different communities have rules, both written and unwritten, but there are laws to enforce them within the communities. So if one of the rules is no psychoactive substances within the gated community, then you are saying accessibility will be reduced. So we are taking that back to the parents and the community at large. Thank you so much. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Daktari, for that very comprehensive response. You've covered all the questions that we had for Nakada, and I'm sure that the people who asked the questions are satisfied. If not, you can still get in touch with us and we'll forward whatever concern you have to Nakada for their response. So we've really gone beyond our time, so I'm going to request Dr. Orek just to take a minute or so just to make his remarks. And there was somebody was asking about if idleness among the youth and students can be a cause for drug and alcohol abuse and what can be done. Maybe we can touch on that as you make your remarks. Dr. Orek?
Thank you, Henry, and thank you, everyone, plus the audience. Really, I think Dr. Orlando, I think that's the right name. Dr. Orlando has really exhaustively provided almost all the solutions, and it is within the authority, and because they have the experts, and you can see exactly how they're saying about that. I think the question on idleness has already been addressed. Yes, it is true. They say an idle mind is a devil's workshop. And of course, when you don't have anything meaningful to do, your mind is blank, anything can be filtered in. It's like a blank piece of paper which anything can be written. So yes, idleness causes, predisposes someone to drug addiction or alcoholism. And what can we do about this? I think all the speakers have mentioned about this already. We need to involve our young people on alternative recreational activities. For example, we'll find out, why are you really idle? Are you really idle because you really don't have something to do, or you are transitioning in between your school programs, or you are on holiday from school or from college? Why are you really idle? And getting involved in positive activities like sports, like dances, like, even going for hikes. Those one keeps your mind busy. The youth are encouraged. Youth are encouraged to group themselves and come up with some positive activities that they can do within their community. If you guys are very keen, I've seen a proliferation of dance groups, and you see them all over the place on social media. You see a group of 5, 6 young people coming together and calling themselves a particular dance group name, and therefore they get involved. And and when you go, for example, to practice your dancing skills and styles and things like that, you find yourself that you don't even have time to think about the idleness is done away with, so you don't even have time to get addicted. So yes, that is true, and that is some of the ways in which it can be done. We can also have what we call youth champions. At the university where we are, we have student peer counselors. These are students, young people who have offered themselves to take fellow colleagues or fellow students through the college life to help them avoid getting addiction. So you can also have youth champions against drug and alcoholism within our communities. There are so many things that we can do. As my perhaps closing remarks, I think we cannot overemphasize more, and I think Nakada has mentioned this again and again and again and again. It always narrowed down to the parents. It always narrowed down to the family. So I think it is important that the family be strengthened. Some of us young parents, we don't know how to be parents. The way my mother and my father brought me up in the village, or even if I'm staying in town, the way I was brought up is very different from the way that I can bring up my children in the current environment where we stay in. So some of us do not really know what to do. You have a teenager at home, and the way Dr. Ivona said, we have hormones raging all over the place. You don't know how to handle a teenager. And parents think that schools provide a solution. You get a good school or expensive school that you have some money, you send your kid there and say the school will provide a solution. But the schools are sending them back to us. When they ban schools because of drug addiction and alcoholism, we are the ones who pay for those schools to be repaired, the dormitories to be built back, the labs to be built back. So again, it goes back to the parents. And it is important that perhaps CARA and associated community organizations like Comaroc and others can actually have these programs that touches on parenting and parenthood. I'm not sure if there is, but perhaps you guys can also think along those lines to really, really help the young parents that are out there. Those are some of the comments I wanted to make. Most of the comments have already been said by the other speakers. And again, I really appreciate for the chance to share my views on this. Thank you, and back to you, Henry.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rek, for those comments and for the reaction that you've shared with us. Very useful, and certainly we'll continue engaging with various stakeholders, including resource persons like yourself, to ensure that we are on the right direction. So ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for going beyond the time, and I know there's still so much that we need to talk about, but in the interest of time, we want to come to a close of this, and we will continue engaging with Nakada and other stakeholders to ensure that the information is getting out there and people are able to make informed choices and decisions. So maybe before I close, I don't know if our partners have maybe a minute or so of closing remarks to make. Daniel Seberling, do you have any word to say before we close?
Oh, thank you very much. No, it was a very interesting discussion. I learned a lot, like I think many of us, and I think it underlines the unique position CARA is in, actually, because when we heard a lot today about that triangular we have about from prevention, rehabilitation, and the combating of alcohol and drug addiction. And I think, as it has been said from many speakers, the core, of course, lies in the family. I think many of these problems start in the family and can be solved to a certain extent in the family. But if it can't, then the next step, obviously, are our organizations as CARA, because I very much like the quote from Charles Orek, that CARA actually is an extension of a family. So CARA consists of many families which are pooling their resources together. And I think that is a very interesting approach, and that's exactly what will lead to success in the fight in the combating of alcohol and drug abuse. Of course, with the support of professional organizations, stately run, church run, and community-run organizations who, because of course these problems need to be addressed by professionals professionally. But I think the place where that can happen as a resident association, as community engagement, is the right approach and is the right platform for that to happen. And that's why I think that the discussions was very fruitful, and I think there's a lot food for thought and a lot of information also who to address with that problem. If any of us incurs that problem with their own family or in their own kind of community, where to go actually and to ask for help. That was very, very helpful and very interesting discussions today. And thanks again, Kara, for the bi-monthly talk series.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for those remarks. And we now want to come to a close of this. And maybe just one comment somebody placed on the chat box is that community helping community is what is needed, and can Kara run awareness against drugs and abuse and in partnership with Nakada. This will be historic. I agree with you that people working together and of course Nakada coming on board will be impactful in terms of creating awareness and making sure that people are more informed and doing the right thing. There are many other questions, but I think we'll be able to respond to them on the chat box in the interest of time. So now let me give Mr. Ephraim Kanake, who is a community leader in his own right. He's been a chairman of Plainview Resident Association for a very long time, but also a board member of Kara and doing many other things. So I want to give Mr. Kanake 1 minute or so just to make closing remarks, and then we can be able to end the session. So Mr. Kanake.
Thank you, Henry. I want to take this opportunity.
Unmute. Mr. Kanake, unmute. Are you unmuted?
Thank you very much, Henry. I want to take this opportunity to just do what you have said.
Sorry, Bwana Kanake, we still can't hear you.
Thank you, Henry, for the opportunity to say thank you to you, to Nakada.
So, sorry, Mr. Kanake, it seems your mic is muted. We can't hear you.
Right now, you can hear me? Yeah?
Okay, proceed.
Yeah, thank you very much, Henry. I want to take this opportunity to say we are grateful for the meeting today in terms of Nakada, in terms of residents associations, and in terms of the participation that has taken place. I want to thank especially Nakada for the very elaborate explanation on what it is that they do. I get that they have a lot of professional practice in this. Dr. Orlando, Dr. Okioma, and the other directors who are there with him, and all the other panelists. You have done a great job to us. But I want to, and those other people who have personal experiences have done a lot of contribution to the meeting today. And I want to say this. This should be a repeat regularly for all of us, Henry. And we want to say the greatest challenge to Kenya's future is the young people who have been lost in the drinking arena. I want to appreciate that having been a leader for quite a while, for example, where I stay in Plainview, 10 years ago, there were no drugs, but today it is full of drugs. And I want to say everybody is experiencing that challenge, but I want to believe that Nakada and the residents associations and the players in this area coming together should be able to address the way forward this area of drug abuse. I want to thank you for especially the elaborate way Dr. Orlando has explained on how the procedure should be. Unfortunately, we don't seem to have that information. Our feedback would have been very quick to tell you that we don't get the way forward, because when you have drugs in your area, police are not of any assistance. But I believe if we work together, we can get somewhere. Thank you, and may God bless you for this day, so that we may continue working together to make sure that drugs and alcohol is dealt with in this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kanake, for those remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to add anything to that, but just to thank all of you for being here with us and being patient at this particular time. And we hope that you found the session useful and you've learned something. And also, we hope that if there are things that you are doing within your community that are useful to this particular subject, you can share that with us and with others, and we'll find a way of making sure that it reaches out to as many people as possible so that they can learn and also replicate where they need to replicate. Finally, I want to say again that as CARA, we are organizing the annual Resident Associations Excellence Awards. We are currently receiving entries from various resident associations, and we encourage you to make entries. If you still don't have the information, you can visit our website. You'll find the information there, kara.or.ke, but you can also send us a mail through mail@kara.or.ke, and we'll share with you more information on that. But we encourage you to share with us what you are doing at community level, and we'll be able to assess that and award you when we'll be holding the gala event for the awarding. Of course, we appreciate partners who have worked with us before. I know even previously, Hans Lane Foundation has supported us. Nakada has been part of that particular process, and we look forward to having them again on board this year so that we can celebrate the good work that communities are doing out there and encourage them to continue doing more and continue working with various stakeholders to make a positive impact on our society. So welcome your entry, welcome your participation, and we look forward to celebrating your work and walking the walk with you to make a positive impact. So I want to thank all of you, our speakers, I want to thank our partners, I want to thank the participants for being with us until this particular time. And we encourage you to be on the lookout for our next session. We hope that next year, because this is likely to be our last forum this year, we hope that we could be able to resume our in-person engagement so that we can network and interact some more and continue sharing the work and the ideas that we have within our communities. So thank you very much. God bless you. And let's keep the discussion going in our neighborhoods, in our communities, and with each other. So you are free to log out, and see you next time when we convene. Asante.
Thank you. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you. Goodbye, her.